Numerous Nigerians remain deeply unsettled by the controversial ruling handed down by the appeal court justices on September 6th. If this judgment is upheld, it implies not only a reconfiguration of our constitutional laws, but also the introduction of new election-related policies in Nigeria. Both Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi have expressed their intent to appeal this decision to the Supreme Court, with a deadline approaching at midnight on Wednesday for them to file their appeals. Failure to meet this deadline would make the judgment legally binding for all. Let's delve into the probable grounds upon which they may base their appeals. Firstly, regarding Atiku Abubakar, his ongoing case in a Chicago district court holds significant importance. He hopes that the court will compel Chicago State University to release Tinubu's admission records, which would serve as crucial evidence in the Nigerian Supreme Court. This evidence carries immense weight, as it marks the first instance of Chicago State University officially disowning Tinubu's certificate. While this information was previously known and had been disclosed to a Nigerian lawyer under subpoena last year, Atiku aims to obtain this evidence in a legally sound manner. Addressing the question of whether the Supreme Court can admit new evidence, it is indeed within their purview, and this new evidence unquestionably meets the criteria for admission. Even if this evidence were to be rejected, it would be a grave injustice, particularly considering the constitutional nature of the matter. The Constitution unequivocally stipulates that anyone found guilty of certificate forgery is subject to disqualification. In such cases, technicalities should not supersede constitutional imperatives. The court exists as a bastion of justice, and when individuals seek redress, especially in matters of life and death, the court's primary duty is to dispense justice, not to dwell on procedural minutiae. Once a constitutional matter reaches the court, it must render a decision, as established by judicial precedent. Previous cases, such as Saleh versus Abba in 2017, saw the Supreme Court disqualify candidates due to certificate forgery without categorizing them as pre-election matters. Therefore, if the Supreme Court aligns with the appeal court's stance that Atiku failed to front-load evidence in his petition, Atiku may argue that the new evidence surfaced after Tinubu's counsel contested the matter in the appeal court. For those unfamiliar with the sequence of events, Atiku initially claimed in his petition that Tinubu was unqualified when he contested the presidential election. Consequently, he requested Tinubu's disqualification. In response, Tinubu's lawyers demanded evidence to substantiate this claim. Atiku subsequently informed them and the court that he would present the necessary evidence to prove Tinubu's disqualification. He introduced various pieces of evidence, including the issue of dual nationality and a Guinean passport, among others. In contrast, Tinubu's lawyers provided vague responses and submitted purported academic records from Chicago State University, which did not address the allegation of certificate forgery. Atiku accused Tinubu of forging the certificate submitted to INEC, and Tinubu's lawyers failed to counter this allegation with any evidence. Atiku then sought the assistance of a U.S. court to compel Chicago State University to validate the authenticity of Tinubu's certificate. The university's response, which disowned the certificate's origin, is a compelling piece of evidence. If the document's maker acknowledges that it is not theirs, it is tantamount to an admission of forgery, barring the existence of another Chicago State University, which is highly unlikely. On Peter Obi's side, they will likely challenge the appeal court's declaration that all grounds for Tinubu's disqualification should be treated as pre-election matters. This election cycle has witnessed several election petition tribunals disqualifying candidates based on certificate forgery, establishing a precedent. Despite the appeal court's lower status compared to the tribunals, Supreme Court decisions also provide precedents. If the Supreme Court concurs with these arguments, it may affect Atiku's case as well. In this context, the Labour Party may invoke Abacha versus Federal Republic of Nigeria, where the Supreme Court classified forfeiture as a crime. This could influence the appeal court's judgments, particularly in the context of Tinubu's account versus Tinubu himself. Abacha faced a similar situation and was fined by the federal government despite not being convicted. This could clarify the issue of forfeiture and its implications for future elections, potentially altering qualifications for presidential and gubernatorial candidates. Furthermore, the Labour Party may contest the appeal court's directive that witnesses must be called from all polling units when challenging election results. The Electoral Act of 2022 explicitly states that certified copies of results, once tendered in court by a petitioner, eliminate the need for oral witnesses. Despite the appeal court referencing this section of the Electoral Act, they still insisted on calling witnesses for each polling unit, a decision that defies logic. The amendment to the Electoral Act aimed to simplify election disputes, as summoning hundreds or thousands of witnesses, especially within the time-bound constraints of presidential election petition tribunals, is impractical. If the judges concur that oral witnesses are unnecessary, they will then scrutinize the evidence. Since the Supreme Court has previously acknowledged the admissibility of certified true copies as exact replicas of originals, this would likely render the 18,000 blurred and unreadable copies provided by INEC under subpoena admissible in court. Consequently, the court would review the evidence, which could potentially result in a mistrial. The Supreme Court's role is to examine legal issues, not to engage in fact-finding, so it remains unclear whether they can remand the case to the appeal court due to time constraints. Assuming this is possible, the President of the Court of Appeal would need to convene a new panel to assess the evidence. Regardless of the course of action taken, these are the primary issues that could significantly impact the election's outcome. Admitting these blurred copies as evidence would likely expose substantial non-compliance by INEC, potentially leading to the election's annulment. Finally, it's worth addressing why Peter Obi and the Labour Party did not submit their political party agent copies as evidence in court. In election disputes, precedence is given to INEC copies, followed by police copies, with political party copies coming last in terms of priority. Presenting INEC copies essentially signifies victory in an election dispute. Unfortunately, the INEC copies requested were blurred, and INEC should have replaced them with the clear copies used during the election. Certified true copies are meant to be exact replicas of the originals. The court, however, absolved INEC of any responsibility, despite being aware that INEC's copies carry the highest priority. Therefore, there was no need for the Labour Party to present their political party agent copies, as INEC's copies should have taken precedence. As we await their appeals and the potential submission of new evidence, especially the Chicago revelation that Atiku intends to present, it is essential to ensure that the Supreme Court officially addresses the complex legal issues surrounding this case. Despite the slim possibility of the Supreme Court overturning the appeal court's decisions, it is imperative to exhaust all legal avenues, ensuring that Nigerian election policies and qualifications for candidates are established definitively. These proceedings have the potential to bring about significant changes in Nigeria's political landscape. If you are watching our video for the first time, I suggest you subscribe to our channel for more interesting and captivating information. Turn on the bell notification to get alert on all our recent posts so you won't miss out any. Share your thought in the comment section and share these videos with family, friends, and concerned Nigerians. Thanks for watching.